fellow Trek Chatters. I'm Pitt Trekkie, and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. Well, everybody, the day has finally arrived. We are actually just about, well, it's 4:45 right now, so about 3 hours, 15 minutes until we start the premiere of Star Trek Discovery. Can you believe it? After 12 years, we finally have some Star Trek coming back. Boy, is that hard to believe for me. You know, it kind of is mind-blowing that it's been 12 years, but I'm really looking forward to having Star Trek back and us having something to talk about again. So let's just go ahead and get the show started for today. Basically what I wanted to do in today's episode is just talk a little bit about my feelings about Discovery. I'm really excited about the show, as you can tell, but I do have a couple concerns here and there. Hopefully that won't add to a whole lot of negative comments here at the bottom of the show, but we'll see what happens. So basically, Star Trek Discovery was first announced in, I believe it was November 2nd, 2015. At that point, they didn't have a show, they didn't have the premise, they just said it's going to be a show that comes into the Star Trek tradition. And so that got a lot of fans talking. What kind of show is it going to be? You know, when's it going to take place? What kind of ship is it going to be on? Is it going to be a ship? Is it going to be on a space station? Is it going to be on a planet? Well, I kind of thought about it, and it was kind of like the show's fans kind of got divided into two camps, okay? I'm a really big coffee lover, so that's kind of where this example's coming from. There's one group of fans that I would say were when they go to a Starbucks, and they have to have a very specific order, okay? That's the type of people that are like, I want a triple skim, quadruple decaf mocha latte with only half a pack of sweetener and just a few drops of cold water, and don't forget for it to be a venti. Those fans I call the ones that want something very, very specific. Like, these would be the fans that would have said, I want an Enterprise B show, I want an Enterprise C show, I want something with the Klingons, I want something that deals with Section 31, I want something that deals with the Academy. Something very, very specific, okay? Then there are fans that fell into the category of me, like what I thought, and I'm the coffee with cream type. I want a very simple formula when I go to my Starbucks and get my coffee with cream. And I really think that that's where Star Trek fandom needed to go with this show, personally. I really feel that in order to get a new generation of Star Trek fans interested, we needed to bring Star Trek back to what its roots actually are. Being on the Enterprise, going and exploring space to boldly go where no one has gone before. That is what I think needed the formula that needed to be. So I would have suggested we would have gone on an Enterprise in the 25th century, you know, 50, 60 years past Voyager and past Nemesis. Now, I know a lot of fans feel that way and a lot of fans don't. I just think that going back to that original mixture would have been very helpful. But when I found out it was going to be a prequel, I was like, okay, so how are we going to make this fit? How is this going to work? Ever since the show has been announced as a prequel, fandom has been torn all over about this show. How's it going to look? What kind of the story going to look like? Are the Klingons going to look the way they're supposed to in the original series? You know, what are the uniforms going to look like? What's going to happen with this show? And it's gotten to the point where fandom is actually torn apart. You have one group of fans that are so gung-ho about Discovery that they don't want to hear any complaints basically at all. Then you got the other fans that think that those Star Trek fans that are constantly supporting it are basically traitors and not real Star Trek fans. None of that makes sense to me on either side. Everybody's allowed to have gripes, but everybody's making fun of each other and ripping each other apart rather than enjoying this. So I just want to give you a little bit of feedback on what my thoughts and feelings are on Discovery. So what I'm going to start with is the good. Number one that's really good about this show is the cast. The cast is absolutely amazing. Captain Gabriel Lorca, Jason Isaacs' character, just has a really strong presence in the command chair, and there was the one picture of him holding the phaser. He's kind of going like this. I don't know exactly what it was about, but it looked very strong to me. I think he's going to be a good commanding officer. I like the actor who plays him. He just has a good screen presence, in my opinion. So I think we're off to a really good start with having a good commanding officer. The lead of the show, the first African-American female lead, that's awesome, Commander Michael Burnham. Okay, I'm very curious about this character. I think there's going to be a lot of strength for her as well. I'm very, very curious to see how her relationship with Spock's family plays. Because in 50 years of Star Trek fandom, there's never been any mention by Spock of having an adopted sister, especially the one that's human. Now, I mean, Sybok came as a surprise to everybody in Star Trek V, so it's not as though little surprises like that can't happen, but it does kind of sprung up on everybody. It was kind of like, what? So I'll be very interested to see how that goes. I also want to see what it is that she does. This apparently starts the Klingon War that's going to be in the show this season. And I just think she's just a pretty good actress. I loved her on The Walking Dead. I think she's going to do great in the role. Another character I'm very interested in seeing is Anthony Rapp's character. As everybody knows, he plays one of the science officers on the ship, Lieutenant Paul. Is it either Stamets or Stamets? I don't know yet. I guess we'll find out tonight. Obviously, he's going to be the first openly gay character on a Star Trek TV series, so that'll be interesting to see that unfold. But to be honest with you, what really has me interested in this character is he's what's called an astromycologist. So basically, he studies fungus. So I'm really interested to see how his story as a fungal expert is going to tie in with the whole story arc altogether. It's kind of a big question mark for me, and I'm just really piqued about that. Another thing that's going really good about the cast is this cast seems very interactive with its fans at this point. Anthony Rapp in particular, I have tweeted him numerous times. I've always gotten a like back from him, except maybe once or twice. He's a busy guy after all. He even also responded to one of my tweets when I asked him, and he was doing the research, watching the Star Trek episodes. I asked him what he thought about the Best of Both Worlds, and he actually sent me a tweet back about it, which I thought was really awesome. Kenneth Mitchell, who's going to be playing Cole, has also been another actor that's been very easy to get along with and has connected with the fans as well. Now, besides the cast, the sets. I think the sets look movie grade. They look wonderful. You can tell that CBS is throwing everything they can into this show to make it look good. It's definitely going to be a 21st century Star Trek. There's no denying that. It looks a lot like the Kelvin era, but I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good thing, bad thing, or not. But I do think the sets look really, really good. And that'll go along with the effects as well. The effects look spot on, movie quality. I also think it's going to be a very interesting story. I could be wrong, but I don't remember from any of the other Star Trek shows hearing of a war with the Klingons at this time. As a matter of fact, in the original series episode Errand of Mercy, I thought they were just going to war at the beginning there. But again, that's a whole 10 years of Star Trek we don't know about, so it'll be interesting to see that play out. So I'm looking forward to seeing the fight and the friction among all the Klingon houses, the 24 Klingon houses, and seeing how that's going to lead into what we have later on in the future with Star Trek. Also see how it affects the main crew and how it affects the Federation in general. What are we going to get from this war? Now, some of the things that I don't like about Discovery, or I shouldn't say don't like, but maybe have a little bit of concern about, canon issues. Okay. Again, I said that the sets look really awesome, they're wonderful, looks like 21st century. But it clearly does not fit the aesthetic of the 23rd century at that time. It's supposed to look more like it did during the Cage era. That being said, I know that they can't actually recreate sets and make them look exactly like they did in 1964. It just wouldn't look right on screen. I just wish they would have tried a little bit more with the aesthetic. But they did. One of the producers did say recently that as the show goes on, certain things are going to move more toward the original series. So we might get a little bit more of that later on in the series run. That's something to look forward to. But until then, I'm still looking forward to seeing how all the sets in action. The Klingon look, that blows my mind. I am not a fan of the way the Klingons look now at the point in this episode. I don't know if they felt they just decided to change it because they could. If they could, that asks the question, should they have? Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And I know the Klingons have been around for 50 years and they've been changed several different times, things of that nature. But by the time Enterprise came on the air, the Klingons the design was pretty well established. How they looked in the different movies and the different TV series. It was pretty consistent. You get this look, and I think it's not so much the hairless part of it, or the uniforms. Those uniforms are pretty cool that they're going to be wearing. The color of their skin. You got some of them there that are purple, and you got some that look like they're albino. Like, where did that come from? But again, the show has not started yet, so I'm going to be willing as a fan to give that a shot and see So basically, my final overview of Discovery, I'm really looking forward to this show. It's been 12 long years since Star Trek has been here. I really, really, really want to see this show do well. So I'm sure most of you would feel that way as well. You want a good show with good stories, good characters that you're going to care about. I guess we won't find that out until, we finally watch the show. So 2 thumbs up for me right now for my guess of how the show is going to go. So now I'd like to go to our segment that I call Open Channel. Okay, I didn't get a whole lot of responses on my YouTube page, which is okay. The show's still brand new, still finding an audience, but I did manage to get a couple people who had a few things to say. Last week's question was, what made you Star Trek fans? So here's what some of the people have written. Rick says, my first recollection of Star Trek was when my dad was watching when I was about 6. I also thought this show was stupid. Then around grade 4, I realized I was actually the tool. Since grade 4 on, I have been hooked. That's happened with a lot of people that I've heard. A lot of people said they initially hated it for whatever reason, and then all of a sudden they gave it a chance, and then they became instant fans. So that doesn't surprise me. Thank you, Rick, for your comment. The next comment is from Frank. What makes me a Star Trek fan when I started to watch when I was 7 with my parents, and still watched it. I still watch it even when I have time, and my favorite character is James Kirk. Thank you very much, Frank, for your comment. Captain Kirk is pretty awesome. Captain Lorca's got a lot to live up to. We'll find that out tonight. And another comment we got here was from Jonathan. So my journey to becoming a Trek fan didn't begin anywhere near as early as yours. My dad watched TNG and DS9, but I never got into it. I was the Star Wars fan because watching those films imprinted on me at an early age. I watched my first Trek film around the age of 15 when I was a counselor at summer camp for Boy Scouts at Camp Conestoga with a fellow counselor, Ed. It was Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home, and it's easily the most accessible Trek film for mainstream audiences, but it started to get me interested. Skip down to, it says, from there I became hooked. I have since watched and rewatched every episode of all 5 Trek series and all the feature films, including the Kelvin Timeline ones. I'm looking forward to Discovery immensely. Jonathan, couldn't have said it any better with you. I can understand why Star Trek IV was kind of what introduced you and got you into it. It is a very accessible film. That's the one with the whales, if anybody out there doesn't know. Jonathan, thank you very much for your time and participating in Open Channel. I appreciate that. All right, so that pretty much ends episode 2 for this week. I'm really looking forward to seeing what your comments are going to be this week about the show. Your assignment for this week is your thoughts on Star Trek Discovery. What are the pros and cons? Please comment below on my YouTube page. Also, please hit the like button. That would be wonderful. You can like me on Facebook. You can go to www.facebook.com/PGHTrekChat. You can also find me on Twitter at PGHTrekChat. I'm looking forward to seeing all of your responses. And until then, until next week or next time, may yins live long and prosper.